years, Star Wars animation fans have been telling me, Grace, you gotta get into this stuff. This is Star Wars. And I have resisted. I mean, you did convince me to watch the finale of Clone Wars when Disney Plus first launched, and that was incredible. So good. But I still haven't gone and watched Rebels. It's a lot to watch. These shows have been on for quite some time. It would be a huge investment to go back and watch multiple seasons. But speaking of Disney Plus getting started, so did this latest Dave Filoni animated show, The Bad Batch, which of course spins off of all of his other stories. So, because I was covering it, I've been watching The Bad Batch since it started with episode 1. And it took me a little bit of time to get into it, as you know if you watched my coverage. But I have to say, a funny thing has happened. I've been sucked into Star Wars lore. You were right. It's great over here. Through the animated Filoniverse, I feel, and it's crucial, animated, I feel more like I understand Star Wars as a story and a brand than I ever have before. Oh, wow. Like Andor, The Bad Batch Season 2 is very sophisticated, dealing with high stakes and deadly consequences. But while Andor puts the focus almost entirely on commentary about rebellion, which was phenomenal, it had some action, but the Filoniverse does that. It has that sophisticated commentary, but it also digs deeper into Star Wars lore, as well as expanding it to new places, and therefore moves the entire story forward. It's got everything going for it, and it's an absolute delight. And it's weird that many people don't watch the Star Wars animation. Now I know how you guys all feel, because incredible stuff is happening over here, not just in terms of quality, but in advancement for Star Wars. This is stuff you should know about. And it's really weird to kind of feel like you're witnessing these huge historical moments in Star Wars, alone. So as I said, now I know how Star Wars animation fans feel. If you want to really understand Star Wars, and I think especially because Filoni is moving so aggressively into live action, thank goodness, you really should be watching these shows. And you can be like me. You can just start with The Bad Batch and work your way through that. And I think, you, like me, after I finished The Bad Batch Season 2, or the first 14 episodes of the 16-episode season, I felt like I understood them. I felt like I was immersed and invested in Star Wars almost to the level that I am in Marvel and DC. I'm starting to feel that kind of connection. It took time, but it's all starting to click. And it's so great to have yet another grand story to be excited about. It's fun. It's so great. That's why we love these things. And I never really truly got Star Wars. And now that I feel like I'm starting to, it's so cool. It's weird. It's like learning a new language. And suddenly, you're like, I'll never understand what they're saying. And then one day you just start to kind of be like, hey, I get it. I picked it up. And I guess it is, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to immerse yourself in that culture for a long enough period of time. And I guess that's what I did. I'm so happy. Even Filoni's live-action Star Wars, as I said, doesn't go far enough. But I have high hopes for the upcoming Ahsoka show. Not only because she comes directly from the animated Filoniverse, and she started out as a guest star in Mando, but now it'll be her show. But she's also deeply connected, of course, to the story of the clones. And what do you know? That's what The Bad Batch Season 2 is all about. And now I care very much about the clones as well. I love these guys. And girl, Omega. If I'm frustrated about the lack of live-action clones in the live-action Filoniverse, imagine how upset Tamura Morrison must be, because he could be playing all these characters. So far, he just was able to play one in a quick blink-and-you-miss-it cameo in Obi-Wan. But it's like, the window is closing for him to be able to tell this story as an actor. And of course, the clones have advanced aging. Look at me. The clones have advanced aging. So, the window of opportunity for them to even have a story to tell is closing within the time. I guess you could always do a flashback, but we don't want to do that. We're in a good place right now with Mando and those stories. And what's going on with the clones, man? What's going on with the clones? Tamura Morrison has spoken on it, and he was very polite, though, because I think he doesn't want to upset Disney or seem like he's complaining. But I think he should. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, Tamura. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So with the clones, the Empire decommissioned an entire army of well-trained soldiers with no personal lives. How did they think that was going to go? Oh, it's fascinating to watch. The Bad Batch Season 1 dealt with the initial shock of those clones being abandoned by their creator. They were like, what? And that season struggled to find its footing just as the clones themselves did. But with season 2, now that the clones know what's up and have accepted it, they're starting to make moves. So great. And of course, they don't all make the same moves based on their personalities, nature versus nurture. They're clones, but they're not all exactly the same. And also opportunity, who's where and what can they do. It's really fascinating to watch. Still, the new season also needs to get its footing a little bit out of the gate. So I got 14 episodes. Disney held back the 2-episode season finale. And after seeing episode 13 and 14, I can see why. So 1 through 3 were great. Actually, the first 2 episodes are on Disney Plus right now. It's a 2-parter debut. And then 3 was good. Then 4 through 6, I got to tell you, I got a little bored. It was a little bit like they were treading water again. But then, when they picked up with episode 7 through the rest of the run through 14, phenomenal stuff. Fantastic. So if you find yourself hitting the same rough patch that I did, power through it! It's great on the other side. I wish they would let you binge these things, because, you could fall off week to week. You can be like, 3 bland weeks in a row, that's going to be tough for people. Whatever. All right, so anyway, it is what it is. You might want to wait to binge it. I don't know. It's like so long. Weekly for 16, it's like almost what we'll be going through with Daredevil. But yeah, it's a lot. The Bad Batch Season 2 not only continues to tell the story of the clones themselves, but cloning in the Star Wars overall story, which of course is becoming increasingly important with both the Yoda clone and an Emperor clone now introduced. The Emperor makes a brief appearance, and I'm like, he's dressed like an evil guy. I can't believe everyone's like, yes, in the Senate. They're like, okay, yeah, what do you think we should do, sir? And I'm like, he's clearly evil. Although Ian McDiarmid always comes back to do the voice, and he's phenomenal. It was really cool. I'm even starting to like the Senate chamber, and I've always thought that was a real snooze fest. Anyway, and while Mando is hinted, of course, at a larger cloning operation, the Bad Batch Season 2 starts to reveal the details of that operation, including Star Wars' own Dr. Mengele, Dr. Hemlock, voiced by the excellent Jimmy Simpson. Now, there are slight, tiny spoilers here, but I've decided to just tease some things that are coming in the season, because I know it's a long haul, and I don't want you to quit. And I really want you to watch it. So you're going to miss this. You're going to miss this. This is a new character being introduced on this show. But speaking of Jimmy Simpson, in fact, since there is now a live-action corner of the Filoniverse, you can see that with some of the more recent voice castings, they are selecting actors that could jump over to live action if needed. And I think the animation even looks a little bit like Jimmy Simpson. Dr. Hemlock is based at Mount Tantiss, which was introduced, of course, in Season 1, but Season 2 is now making it a major Star Wars location. This is a very important place. Although, of course, Mount Tantiss harkens back to the 1991 Legends novel, Heir to the Empire, which, of course, is not technically part of canon, but they still borrow from quite a bit. See, I'm getting into this stuff. I'm like, oh, yes. I love it. It's so fun now. Dr. Hemlock is also revealed to be head of the Empire's Advanced Science Division. That's right, basically AIM for Star Wars. I was like, I guess if Marvel's going to copy off of Star Wars is going to copy off of Marvel's homework, they're starting to go kind of like, actually, I just think Star Wars is copying off of Marvel, to be honest with you. But that's okay. I think a little Marvel could rub off on them, because right now, I think there's still a lot of very strong commentary in Star Wars, whereas Marvel's just like, yuck. That's what Marvel's doing these days. So anyway, but Marvel is going to start to do stuff with AIM, I think, with the upcoming proliferation of their Hulks. So we'll see. They could be doing that too. Now, beyond the advancements of Star Wars lore and story, we of course also have our beloved main characters. Let me tell you, I love Omega. I love Omega so much, who's a little older here, fantastic hair, and becoming an excellent soldier herself. And as we all know, as a pure female clone of Jango Fett, which was revealed in the last season, so it's not a spoiler for this season, she's really Boba Fett's little sister. And I would love to see Michelle Ang playing an adult version of Omega, maybe on the Ahsoka show. I think Michelle Ang not only does a phenomenal job, but she is cast, I think, to potentially play a female version of Boba Fett. Oh, so great. Anyway, Omega, as I said, is a fantastic character and one of Star Wars' best female characters. In fact, I think a lot of Star Wars good female characters come out of the Filoniverse. I love Ahsoka. Now, Omega has become a valuable member of the Bad Batch, very skilled, and I love her laser bow and arrow. I didn't know how I felt about it at first, but she's become very good with it, and she never runs out of arrows, which of course is always a running joke when it comes to archers. But I feel bad that some fans are surely going to complain because, especially for the first 2/3 of the second season, it plays like Omega and her 4 dads, rather than spending just a few episodes focusing specifically on Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Echo. I thought that was a mistake. I still enjoy the show, but again, it opens it up for criticism because, it really does focus on Omega, and unfortunately, these 4 characters end up kind of taking a back seat in what's a show that's called The Bad Batch. Hunter does have a spark. Ooh, love is in the air. He doth protest too much with Wanda Sykes' feed Genoa. I wasn't quite sure if they were into each other, and then another one of the Bad Batch members says something towards the end of the season, and I was like, I knew it. I knew there was a vibe. Wanda Sykes, MVP in voice work. She, of course, also is over in Harley Quinn. But she voices a treasure hunter who adds a nice dimension to the show, both with the adventures that she takes the Bad Batch on. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's a change of pace. And also her dynamic with Hunter. I think they make a nice couple. Let's see if that goes anywhere. There is some exploration of whether or not the Bad Batch could have real lives, beyond their mission. And I think that the question is that possible, not just because they're clones, but because they're career soldiers? And I'm enjoying exploring that question quite a bit as well. The one adult member of the Bad Batch that does get some attention this season is Crosshair. And wow, are his episodes good. Wowie, wow, wow. I particularly loved episode 12, The Outpost. That is some good stuff, which was up there with some of the best war stories I've ever seen in any medium. The evolution of Crosshair this season is very sophisticated and extremely well done. Kudos, as always, to D. Bradley Baker, who voices all the clones with jaw-dropping range. Oh, the emotion, the pathos. Oh, it's so good. This might be animation, but as I said, the stakes are high. Characters die. Characters are killed. And there are a lot of great lessons, both of conflict and peace, that I think anyone of any age could learn from. I was wondering if maybe this was PG-13 and younger children couldn't watch it. But I watched, some R content, or mostly stuff that was R-rated for action and stuff. I watched that when I was little. And I think, as long as someone adult is watching it with you to make sure you take away the right lessons, right, and to discuss it with you, I think the show is so well done that it still is for almost all ages, because it's very well done. I think, it's good stuff. And I often have agreed in the past with some Star Wars fans that say if there aren't any Jedi around, if there aren't any lightsabers, it doesn't feel like Star Wars, at least to us. But after watching The Bad Batch Season 2 and Andor, I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I'm starting to sense, as I said, Star Wars as a whole. The struggle of the 99% versus the 1%, the exploration of how government, military, and citizens are all part of the same system for better or worse, and how they can affect each other. And what apathy can do and things like that. And then, of course, there's the sci-fi setting. Wow, I love it when ships come in and out of hyperspace and how that's used from a strategic standpoint. I'm coming to feel that Star Wars aerial battles and aerial maneuvers are as cool as lightsabers. I love that stuff. Another thing I've often said is that I love it when fantasy is grounded in reality and therefore not only more relatable, but able to offer commentary on the real world. And both Andor and The Bad Batch Season 2 have that in spades. But while Andor failed to hold my attention for 50% of the time, The Bad Batch is much more action-packed and has a lot more going on. So it has all of Andor's strengths, I feel, without any of its weaknesses. It's really great. I cannot recommend The Bad Batch Season 2 highly enough. I mean, you could start from here. You might be like, do I have to go back and watch the whole first season? I think it's like comic books. You just got to dive in. Don't feel like I did that. Do I have to start from Clone Wars Season 1? Just jump in now. I think the animated Star Wars Filoniverse is crucial to understanding this brand these days. So I think not only diehard fans should watch, but casual and aspiring Star Wars fans, come on in here. It's great if you want to understand Star Wars as much as you do Marvel and Disney. And it's just more evidence that Dave Filoni, who oversees this show with Jennifer Corbett clearly in charge, that Filoni and his team are the real future of Star Wars. Really, definitely. So that's I think that, not to disparage on Tony Gilroy too much, but he should talk to Dave Filoni. I think he could use some notes. Because I love what Gilroy's doing, but he has some slow points. And I think, although I did say some of the episodes were slow here as well. But Andor was harder to get through than this. This is really, really strong. So that's my review of The Bad Batch Season 2, which, as I said, has just hit Disney Plus with the first 2 episodes. Go check them out. They are not only fantastic, but this season, you're going to get started on a season that offers crucial development to the Star Wars overall story. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.